Hello, hi, and welcome to episode number 31 of an Italian knitting podcast. My name is Francesca and I'm an Italian knitter, and you probably haven't seen me in quite some time. I haven't recorded any podcast over the summertime, which is the season that just went by, I guess flew by even. I don't tend to prioritize or I guess gravitate towards knitting over the summer when the weather is very warm and oftentimes like sticky and humid here in Italy. So I didn't knit much, and me not knitting much, I guess translated in me not sitting down to record a episode with not much to share with you. So anyway, 4 months went by since my last episode. So yeah, today I'm here to catch you up on things that I've knitted on and completed over the past 4 months or so. And I even have a quite professional looking microphone today. I bought it for work related reasons, like my actual day job, that it's not knitting related. And so I was like, ooh, I should try to use it for my podcast as well. And I feel like the audio quality is better. However, today you'll also hear my kind of sniffly, deeper voice. I'm kind of at the end, hopefully, of a cold. And so I don't know if it's good for you to hear my voice much better than usual. Maybe this wasn't the right time for me to improve my audio quality since my voice is not particularly pleasant to listen to, I think. But I guess we'll have to deal with this. Let's start. I'm wearing my first finished object. This is a Peacock Tee by leKnit or Lene Holmes Sanso. And you might have seen this in progress during the last episode, but it was of a beigey, creamy color, and now it's kind of a bright plum color. Is that plum? Kind of feels like plum. And the reason for the big change is that I just dyed it. I wasn't pleased with the original color when I put it on, and I was like, I'm really not excited about wearing this or even finishing it. And someone in the comment mentioned, yeah, you can just dye it. I was like, of course I can just dye it. I don't know why it didn't come to mind that that was a possibility. So I got a hold of some box dye. Is that how you call it? Box dye? Like if it's dye and it comes in a box? I think so. It is called Simply Col. And the color is blackberry red. I call it plum. I guess I could have just read the name of the color on the box, blackberry red. And I much prefer it now with this kind of brighter, deeper, I guess, colorway compared to the beigey, creamy white. I guess it wasn't like a bad color in general, but maybe with my skin tone, my coloring, it didn't suit me. Maybe that was just the reason. Anyway, lesson learned. I could, maybe next time that I buy yarn, kind of experiment with like bolder colors like this one that I would never have picked in a yarn bowl form. And second lesson learned is that you can just dye stuff. I guess even things that you didn't knit yourself, but especially for knits that you put a lot of time into. And if you do like kind of the shape and how they fit you, but just don't like the color, just dye it. And like it sounds so straightforward and not groundbreaking now that I say it and think about it, but just it didn't come to mind. So happy that I did this kind of experiment, I guess. It was my first time dyeing anything, and I think it turned out very well. The process itself was like fairly clear. So you need to get some very hot water. My specific dye that I used says the water needs to be 60 degrees Celsius, and then you just dissolve the dye, kind of stir a little bit. This is a powder dye, so you have to kind of dissolve it in water, and you just dunk the stuff that I want to dye. And I chose to dye this tee and also this camisole. This is the Cumulus top by PetiteKnit. It's very simple, stockinette in the round, triangles at the top type camisole. Very, very straightforward. And this one was also in a very kind of beigey, sad color, not very kind of summer appropriate. So this also went in the very hot water with the dye, and they turned out very well. I follow the directions of my dye in terms of how many grams of fabric, of, I guess, clothes to put in the water, which means 300 grams. So it says one packet dyes 300 grams of fabric, which is more or less kind of the sum of these two garments. And so I just followed those directions. But to be honest, the water was so colored and soaked with color that I think I could have also added other things and they would have been dyed perfectly fine. Maybe this garment quantity is very conservative. I think this box dye would have dyed even more things if I had to put them in there. But anyway, the only thing that I do want to say about the dyeing process, no, actually, I want to say a couple of things about the dyeing process. One thing is that this tee that I'm wearing turned out perfectly colored and very evenly. However, I feel like the camisole in the armpits, is this TMI? The armpits have a little bit less intensity in terms of color. Like the I-cord here at the armhole, it is less colored, a little bit lighter in terms of color. And the reason is, I guess I'm pretty sure, is that I wore this camisole and some of my deodorant, I guess, kind of transferred onto the armpit of the camisole. And I probably didn't really like properly wash it before dyeing it. I think what happened is that there was some deodorant still left on the kind of I-cord at the armhole, and the dye didn't take as well as the rest of the kind of the body of the camisole, just because I guess deodorant is kind of protects, I guess, in a way, the fabric and the fibers kind of shields the actual fiber from the dye. So it makes sense that it's not as intensely colored as the rest. To be honest, I don't think anyone would have noticed. I also kind of typically don't notice. I'm just trying to be picky and just kind of recount my experience with dyeing, but that's about it, I guess. And the other thing about dyeing is that I wasn't really comfortable about disposing of the actual dye water after kind of I was done with the process, which I guess lasted like maybe an hour. So they were in the water maybe an hour, maybe less, half an hour. I didn't know what to do with the super brightly colored water. I think you should be able to just pour it in the toilet or in the sink in your house, but I wasn't sure if it would actually dye maybe some of the actual surfaces. So I just rinsed this stuff in the sink that we have in the backyard, like outside, which I don't care if it kind of stains. That's a sink that kind of lives outside, and I think it's kind of made for like dirt, watering plants, and I don't know, like getting dirty. So I was fine with just pouring my dye water in there. So I just pour in there and like rinse this stuff in the sink that we have outside. And then I poured like the water, some in there, and I think some in the actual backyard in a corner. And I guess I felt good about that. Not pouring the colored water in my house on like very white toilet and sink surfaces. So I don't know. And yeah, I think it was an overall successful process, not too kind of cumbersome, but somewhat cumbersome in the sense that like the things that I mentioned, like properly clean the clothes, no deodorant, pay attention when you dispose of the dye water. And the other thing is that I was dyeing plant-based fibers, and so I was very, very comfortable, to be honest, to dunk this stuff in water that was at 60 degrees Celsius, which is very, very hot. And the box does say that this is also for wool. So you can use this same dye for wool, but I don't know if I would be super comfortable putting my wool knits into 60 Celsius. It seems very hot. And maybe you could transition, like just maybe put the woolly knit into maybe slightly warmer water and then kind of slowly transition to a 60 Celsius degrees water. But I don't know. So I guess personally, I don't know if I would do the same process for wool just because of the high temperature. And I don't know if it's necessary for the water to get that hot. I kind of think that this dye would still work at a lower temperature, but I guess it's not guaranteed. Like, it might not be this brightly colored, or maybe it wouldn't last as many washings afterwards. I think for wool, I would maybe do more research and see if there's a different dye that would still dye wool but at a lower temperature. Okay, and after this unnecessarily probably long spiel about dyeing, let's go back to the Peacock Tee. The only modifications that I've done are kind of the edges. So I've done twisted rib for the ribbing at the neckline. I've done twisted rib at the bottom ribbing, so they kind of match. And I've done an I-cord bind off at the sleeves. And I think in the original pattern, these are all 1x1 ribbings, so not twisted, so there's no I-cord, but as to be honest, with most like top-down tees or sweaters, or I guess cardigans as well, you more often than not can kind of just substitute whatever ribbing or edge you want. So I would encourage that. I think this works well. I think with plant-based fibers, twisted rib works very well for me. It looks very neat. Otherwise, I feel like 1x1 regular ribbing is a little bit sloppy with my tension when knitting. So yeah, and I do like the I-cords at the sleeves. I've done this modification, like the I-cord edge, in a couple of other tees, shirts that I have, and I would recommend it. That's it. The yarn that I've used originally, which I guess was beige at some point, is the Balam Bamboo. I bought it in Spain, near Barcelona, when I was with Lisa. And since I have it here kind of laying around, I'll also show you my other Peacock Tee that I've knit a couple of years ago, I think. And this one is with the twisted rib at the sleeves as well. So no I-cord bind off. So it still looks pretty good to me, I think. And the yarn that I've used in this case is Sandnesgarn Line. So this blue one feels a little bit heavier, and in both kind of the actual weight of the garment on your body, but also even in terms of breathability and like ease of wearing this in the heat. I think the bamboo version that I'm wearing now is much more kind of breathable and enjoyable in kind of the hotter weather. So I think I made an improvement in terms of the fiber that I've used this time. So I don't think this will be my last Peacock Tee. I really like this pattern. It's very simple lace at the top of like in the yoke. It's a round yoke. So you just kind of follow your chart and go, go, go. And then other than that, it's like plain stockinette in the round. So very simple, but I think high impact. Seems more complicated than what it actually is. I also have another finished kind of summer top, and that's the Tolsta Kami. Is it Tolsta Tank? Tolsta Tank. There you go. The pattern is from Rebecca, who's the Crea Bea, and the version of the Tolsta Tank that I've chosen is the square neck. So the Tolsta Tank pattern comes with 3 versions, and this is one of the 3. It is a very simple looking, I think, camisole, but kind of refined, but very, very wearable. The neckline is quite high on your body, so I feel like it's very suitable even kind of for, I guess, work video calls. It doesn't feel like something that you necessarily need to wear only on the beach, like maybe sometimes kind of those more like low cut, kind of sexy camisoles. This one I think is perfectly fine for kind of work calls or like walking in town, like downtown. It doesn't have to be worn at the beach. That's what I'm trying to say. And I've made the modification of, instead of the ribbing for the neckline and the straps, I went for a double folded hem. So this is just stockinette, and then I purled 1 row and knit some more stockinette and sewn the insides closed, I guess shut, so that this is kind of, I think it's folded hem is the right terminology. The purl row kind of helps you with the folding and with making it look quite neat. I quite like it. I don't remember if I saw this modification in Rebecca's own knitting podcast, or if someone else had done this, or maybe, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think I came up with it kind of by myself. I think I took inspiration from another camisole or top that I've seen, but I quite like it. It's, I think, even more polished than 1x1 ribbing, so even more elevated, I guess. I don't want to say elegant, because I don't think this is meant to be like an elegant camisole, but just more polished. And I've also done a folded hem at the very bottom. So this hem here is also folded down and sewn. And how I typically do folded hems like this one is I actually, as I said, do the stockinette in the round, the purl row, some more stockinette, and then I just cast off normally, maybe with a stretchy bind off, so very loose, and then pause. And so then I fold it down and I do hand sewn with the regular needle, like sewing needle. I sew down the edge here. So I do kind of two steps, the cast off of everything and then the sewing of the cast off edge on the inside of the garment. And I'm mentioning this because I know that maybe a more popular option, or just maybe I guess an alternative option, is for you to do both the binding off of the garment and the sewing down part kind of at the same time, but with your regular knitting needles, and you just kind of pick one stitch up from the inside of the garment and binding off at the same time. And so you do, I guess two steps in one. So the binding off and the sewing down, the attaching of the folded hem at the same time. And I've seen lots of patterns do that even for like folded collar, not just folded hems kind of for sleeves and body, just even at the neckline. And I found that so fiddly. I'm apparently not good at doing two things at the same time. So I much prefer do the bind off and then setting aside my knitting needles, picking up my sewing needle and attaching. And the yarn that I've used is Drops Safran. It's 100% cotton and the weight is a sport weight. And the Tolsta Tank pattern is technically meant or designed for fingering weight yarns, and there's also a version for DK weight yarns. However, the fingering weight version of the pattern anyway follows a gauge that's, I think, fairly loose for a fingering weight garment. So I was able to get away with just using a sport weight yarn for the Tolsta Tank fingering version. It just means, I think, that my final fabric is slightly more stiff and structured than the kind of intended fabric of the pattern. However, I think it's totally fine. I do like this fabric. It's not stiff at all. I think this is still a very appropriate gauge for a sport weight yarn. And the yarn is actually repurposed from a t-shirt that I've knit a couple of years ago, I think. I have a vlog actually on my channel. It's the Skagen tee, and it was actually a bottom-up tee. And bottom-up, I think for me meant that I couldn't really do a good job at choosing the correct length for that t-shirt. So the Skagen tee didn't really fit me the way I wanted. And I do now know that I don't enjoy bottom-up patterns, so I would now stay away from that construction. Anyway, I frogged the Skagen tee, which was again Drops Safran, and I used that yarn to make this camisole. I called it camisole. I think it's technically a tank. I feel like I haven't yet understood exactly well the difference, but anyway. Actually, this Tolsta Tank is technically bottom up as well. I forgot to mention that. But what you can actually do, and I think it's recommended in the pattern itself, is you can cast on with a provisional cast on, for example, knit up, so knit the shaping of the neckline, the straps and everything, and then you can pick up your kind of provisional cast on and from there do a kind of a top-down construction for the body. So technically the yoke, is it yoke if it's a camisole tank? No. The neckline part, it is bottom up, but then you can make the body into kind of a top-down like construction by using a provisional cast-on. And actually, since I'm not good at provisional cast-ons, what I've actually done personally is I cast it on regularly with the long tail cast on. I did my top part of the shaping, and then when it was time for me to work on the body top and down, I picked up these stitches slightly above the cast on edge, and I cut the cast on edge and kind of unraveled it, and that resulted in just me having the stitches picked up and ready to do top down. I don't know if it's worth it in the case of this camisole, because if you're good at provisional cast-ons, then you just provisional cast on and then pick up that provisional cast on, unravel it, I guess, like do the provisional cast on method. But if you, like me, hate provisional cast-ons, maybe you can do the same as me. And to be honest, I think it might take more time to do what I've done compared to a provisional cast on. However, my excuse is that I am bad at it, bad at provisional cast on in general. And also I think I did not have a crochet hook to try and do the crochet provisional cast on. And so I was just like, okay, I'll do a regular cast on and then deal with it. I don't think I have anything else to say about this tank, other than I will for sure knit a couple more next summer. Maybe I'll try all the different necklines that the pattern offers. That seems quite fun. Cool. Okay, last kind of summer finished object is a skirt. So I didn't really follow an actual pattern for this skirt. However, the hem, folded hem here at the waistline is 100% me following, not 100%, but it is me following the instructions from the Hemingway shorts by the Knitting Booth or Lara booth. And the gauge that I have for my skirt is actually different than the gauge for the Hemingway shorts. So that's why I'm saying not 100% same instructions for the waistband, because I've casted on a different amount of stitches so that the waistband would still fit me around my waist, I guess. However, the actual instructions are the same. So it is a folded hem. Actually, it is very similar to what I did for the Tolsta Tank. And in this case, the difference is that there is a actual very like tall elastic inside this folded hem, I guess folded waistband, so that it can actually hug my waist and kind of be useful. And after the waistband, I did some increases, you can kind of see probably, I don't know again, and some more increases, and then at some point I just kind of knitted straight down. The increases are, again, I'm not following a pattern, so I just kind of made them up, and I've done one increase round and then some kind of plain rounds of stockinette in the round. One round of spread increases and then a good amount of plain stockinette in the round. One round of increases, plain stockinette in the round. So super simple. And those kind of spread across increases, you can see them. I would say that I don't think this is a very well planned skirt for me. I don't know, to be honest. Like here you can definitely see them. Here I've done quite a lot close to the waistband, but maybe even here, like you would see some noticeable increases, but I really wanted to keep it simple and I didn't have a pattern to follow. There are now, I think, a few more skirt patterns that have come up, and I would love to pick one of them for next summer and actually follow a proper skirt pattern instead of me playing with this. And the bottom edge is a simple I-cord bind off. I think it goes well with the very minimalistic looking skirt. So this hem, I think, goes very well with it. Like it matches the aesthetic of the skirt. The yarn that I used is a very basic cotton. I think it's actually called basic cotton from Mondial. That's that's a yarn brand. They're an Italian yarn brand. And I think it's sturdy enough to withstand me kind of sitting down on a skirt, because a skirt, I guess pants or like shorts as well, like the fabric, I guess, needs to be sturdy and strong enough to not wear down when you sit down on your garment that you've made. So I think this cotton and also the gauge that I've knitted it at should be enough for this skirt, not just to kind of fall apart and like create holes in the kind of places where I produce friction when sitting down. So I went with cotton and quite like a dense enough gauge. It's not like a loose gauge, right? Like it's fairly dense for this yarn. So yeah. My first skirt, I don't think it'll be my last one. I thoroughly enjoy and love stockinette in the round projects in terms of knitting on them, but also wearing them. Like I think the look of this, I'm really happy with. So I don't think it'll be my last skirt. However, I think it'll be my last skirt without following a pattern. I would much rather just trust the designer who put thought into it and the shape and the increases and how the increases look. So I think I'll make a skirt next summer, but following a pattern. Okay, enough of summer garments, summer knit, summer fibers. My last two finished objects are two kind of cold weather accessories. The first one is for myself. This is an Italian bandana. The pattern is by myself, and it is a little bit of a wider, bigger version that what the pattern, I guess, suggests. The pattern is for one ball of kind of a DK way or worsted way yarn, and this is, I think, a little bit more than one ball of yarn. I just knit on it until I ran out of yarn, and so it is, I think, 70 grams, maybe 80 grams even. I didn't even weigh it. I'm not a good podcaster, I guess. And it is seemingly one solid color and one solid yarn throughout. However, surprise, it is two separate, completely separate yarns that like even the composition of the fiber is different, but I don't think you can tell. The transition, it is here. The top one, I do have the ball band. It is called Soft Lama. This was left over from a sweater that I test knit last year, 2 years ago. It's called the Anna winter sweater, and I don't have any more of the top green, foresty green color, but I did have a little bit of leftover of the beige color, and so I use it at the very, very top of the bandana. And the bottom one, that one is Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok Worsted, and it was yarn that my friend Erin from the Courier Knits podcast gifted me a while back, and so I just combined the two, not combined, I guess knit one after the other and made it into a good size bandana or little shawl, I guess. And no one will ever know that these are two different yarns. Haha. I guess you would know, but no one else could be able to notice, I think. And I will wear this bandana in a couple of weeks at the Knit Italy, or Knit Italia, I think it's actually called, festival, which will take place in Florence. It is a Friday to Sunday event. Lots of like yarn vendors, classes, just knit and chill around. And an Italian bandana is kind of the official pattern of the event. And so I hope to see other knitters wearing these bandanas around, like walking around the festival, and then we can all kind of take pictures together. And this is one of my Italian bandanas, and so it's one that I will bring to the Knit Italy festival. The very, very last finished object is an accessory, but not for myself. It's for my daughter. It is a hood. It's called the Elwy Hood. And I absolutely flew through the actual knitting of this pattern. I was sick. I was home from work for a couple of days, and I just knit on this and finished it in really like maybe 2, 3, 4 days, something like that, which is very quick for me, I guess. And I can wear it for you. Try it on. Should I? Sure. Okay, I removed it because it was too warm today, and also I think it doesn't fit me very well. This is a child size, and so it is too small for me as an adult, but I think the shape could be very, very fun and usable for adults as well. Like for other type of kind of head accessories geared towards children, like balaclavas, or like, I guess balaclavas is what I picture in my mind. I think those look perfect and so cute on kids, but not as cute on adults. Like a balaclava, I find it very appealing and very smart and very useful to fight the very cold weather and even like rain or snow. I appreciate that, like being very, very well covered, but it's not as stylish. However, a hood like this one, I would find it even stylish because you can kind of like wear it back with the hood on your back, and you can kind of pull it up, and it's kind of like a Red Riding Hood vibes, but stylish and grown up. I'm not sure if I'll make one for myself, but probably yes. I will have to find some more like neutral colored yarn probably. This is Drops Air in the colorway Sweet Orchid. I actually have a few more bowls, and I'll produce some more, I think, winter accessories for my daughter. I think a scarf or a cowl for her as well. And yeah, I find Drops Air very like soft and warm and non-itchy at all. However, it kind of peels if you use it and wear it quite a lot. But I think for kids, which will wear this for like maybe a few seasons, I think this will be good enough. Like if this doesn't last 10 years in terms of actually like integrity of the fabric and the pilling, like if this lasts a couple of years for her, so this winter, next winter, maybe another one, I think that's good enough, I guess. I'm unsure if I would use Drops Air for myself because I do want to wear my knit for longer than just a couple of years. I picture like 5 years, 10 years maybe, hopefully. So I think for myself, I would use like a yarn that I know is less prone to pilling. I don't know. Anyway, I think Drops Air is a pretty good blown yarn option in general, I guess, but for kids especially so. And she loves this color. I think she picked it herself. So yeah. I think it is a little bit big on her. I follow the pattern in terms of measuring her head and picking the size that is appropriate for her head circumference. However, just as a style of a hood, it is a little bit like kind of roomy for her around her face. So it doesn't serve the same purpose as a balaclava. It's not snug around your face. Like this would still let like some air in around your face and around your head. I guess you could anyway wear like maybe a thin hat underneath and then put this on top to kind of cover your neck and like be warm around your neck. But yeah, so this is more of a loose head accessory. I think I like it more actually than a balaclava in terms of the look of it. And I did put elastic, very thin elastic thread around the face folded hem, just so that it doesn't loosen up more than this current circumference. This is already, I guess, as I said, pretty loose around my daughter's head, so I don't want it to get even more stretched out, and so I just put it elastic. But yeah, brilliant pattern, very, very fun to follow. The only part that I had a little bit of trouble understanding and putting in practice is the round that connects kind of the cowl part and the hood part. They're like a kind of a double knitted round, or a few rounds actually here. Those are a little bit tricky to knit, I think, if you haven't done that before, but in the pattern, there are pictures that you can follow. So I managed to do it. So I guess it wasn't that difficult. Yeah. Okay, how are you doing? We are done with the finished objects, but we still have a few works in progress. Are you still with me? I've been taking kind of water breaks and stretching a little bit, like putting my knits away. So I've taken breaks. So I don't know how about you. So feel free to take a break as well. This will be, I think, a long episode. Again, 4 months without recording means that I now have to condense things, but it'll still be quite rambly. Anyway, first, work in progress. This is a very luxurious, fancy. This is very fancy. And I have, I guess I could call it a poppy sweater, but this is a poppy tee by PetiteKnit, but made into a sweater. So I guess instead of a poppy tee is a poppy sweater. Can I call it that? I guess it's a poppy tee. It's a long-sleeved poppy tee. Let's call it that. This is mostly done in terms of the actual knitting. However, I have everything. So sleeve 1, sleeve 2, and bottom hem on hold, because I wanted to block the garment and see how much it stretched vertically before actually binding off all the hems, I guess. So it is mostly finished, it's blocked, I guess. And now it's my turn to try it on and see if I want a little bit more length on the body or the sleeves, and then adjust that and bind off. I will actually try it on. I think it's complete enough for me to wear it and pretend it is a finished object, kind of. Ooh, so this is the first time that I actually try it on after blocking it, and I feel like the sleeves are even like longer than I was expecting them to turn out. So I think sleeves are either ready to bind off, or even I need to frog a little bit. I'll decide after recording this podcast and maybe watching me in like an actual full-length mirror and not just looking at my sleeves from here. But yeah, this is kind of the pre-binding off version of this sweater. And I followed the same exact instructions that are in the poppy tee pattern by PetiteKnit. However, I've chosen 2 sizes above my regular PetiteKnit size. I'm in between extra small and small, and this one is L, it's large. So I went above, I guess, two sizes, more or less, to achieve an oversized look. So the poppy tee is a tee. The poppy tee is intended for less positive ease than a sweater would have. And so if I had just followed the poppy tee instructions for my regular size, I would have gotten like a long sleeve sweater. Like I could have done that modification, right? Long sleeves. But then the body, I guess the rest of the garment would have been quite fitted compared to my ideal sweater. I think it would have worked well for a t-shirt, like a tee. But I wanted more relaxed sweater, relaxed garment. And so I went above 2 sizes. And I forgot to mention that, but this is 100%, even more actually, 110% inspired by Knitterina's process. She's on Instagram and YouTube, and she did exactly the same, not exactly, but she did the same kind of experiment of taking the poppy tee pattern, picking a size 1 or 2 up. I think for her, she picked only 1 size up compared to her regular PetiteKnit size. She also did long sleeves, but I think she also modified the collar to be 2x2 and the bottom hem to be a split hem. And although she inspired me for this entire kind of garment, I was actually much less creative in the sense that I've actually followed the poppy tee pattern in terms of the edges, so like sleeves, cuffs, bottom hem. I did not do like a split hem in the bottom or like a 2x2 ribbing. I just followed the pattern, and I did make long sleeves. So that's my main modification, I guess. And I guess the star of the project or the garment is the precious and lovely and beautiful Cardiff Cashmere Classic. It is expensive, especially in like a sweater quantity like this is. I've used 10 or 11 bowls of the Cardiff Cashmere Classic, and so it comes up to be a very expensive sweater. I think it's the most expensive sweater that I ever knit, Because even with like maybe a fingering, wool and a mohair, even though you're buying a lot of yarn and combine it, I think I never came up to the same price than like this single strand of cashmere yarn. I'm fortunate and privileged enough so that I can use my money to buy yarn that it is expensive. I think a part of it is also because when I started knitting, I wanted to knit a lot of things, a lot of sweaters. I was knitting maybe even more than one sweater per month. So I feel like I couldn't justify like a super high price for one single garment if I were knitting like, I don't know, 12, 14, 15 sweaters per year or so. But I feel like now that I have a very well-stocked handmade wardrobe, I don't knit as many sweaters. Is that true? I think so. Anyway, I feel like I can justify a little bit better spending a lot of money on one single sweater because I don't think I have to knit that many sweaters, right? So with the money that I would have spent on 2 sweaters a few years ago, I will combine the money and use it on one sweater. I don't know if it makes sense. I will do my best to take care of this sweater throughout the years to come, and hopefully it'll survive. Being a very soft yarn, I'm sure I'll have to depeel it quite a few times to keep it in good shape. But yeah, I'm excited to have a very, very cozy sweater that is warm but also very lightweight. This is technically a sport weight yarn. Gauge is, I think, 23 stitches per 10 centimeters. It is quite a thin fabric. It's less thick than DK weight sweater, so this is very easy to wear but also very warm because of the cashmere. And yeah, and it feels very, very good on my body. I'm very, very happy about this garment so far. I'll have to see how it looks after I actually bind off and remove my stitch holders and the kind of yarn coming off of it. I'm sure the look will improve even more once I actually finish it off. And yeah. And actually the color that you see me wearing wasn't really an intentional choice. I actually ordered this Cardiff cashmere yarn in one sweater quantity and one kind of accessory hat quantity. And I was planning to send off the hat quantity to the Bay Area with my husband. He was going on a work trip and he has a co-worker who knits. And I was like, ooh, I want her to kind of sample and try out some of this very fancy yarn that is Italian. And I'll keep the sweater quantity for myself. And my plan was to order the hat quantity for her in this soft blue color, which I think would make a really good color for a hat. And the sweater quantity for myself, I plan to order Susanne, a kind of a brown colorway, very warm caramely, and that was supposed to be for a sweater for myself. However, as you can tell, things didn't turn out quite the same as I had planned. I, by mistake, swapped the colorways while ordering from the website, and I ordered for her the hat quantity in Sudan, the brown, and I ordered the sweater quantity for myself in this kind of pale blue. And I was a little bit disappointed when I got the package and looked over at my receipt and realized that it was my mistake and that I made the wrong order or swapped the colors. However, after kind of looking at it and thinking about it, I was like, that's totally fine. I actually have a brown sweater already in my knitted wardrobe. This is the Stockholm sweater by PetiteKnit in Filcolana Light Truffle. It's a combination over the fingering and the mohair. The color is light truffle. And so I guess maybe I didn't need 2 sweaters in like a brown color. So anyway, so I kept the sweater quantity of the pale blue color, and now I'm very happy that I have it in almost finished object form. I don't have any light blue, pale blue sweaters or garments, or even in my not knitted wardrobe, to be honest. I guess it's a color that maybe I don't gravitate toward. I would not pick on a shelf, even in yarn form, or I guess in a garment form. So anyway, I think it looks good though on me, so I'm very happy that things turned out the way they did. That said, if in my life I will choose to order some more of the cashmere, the Cardiff cashmere yarn, I think that Sudan brown colorway might be my pick. I don't know. It is the Sudan is much more caramelly, warm brown, and this is a taupey brown, to be honest. So maybe I could still justify having two somewhat similar sweaters. So I don't know. Anyway, that's it. I will show it to you with the edges all bind off and without strings attached next time, so then you can kind of see the final look. I am back in my dyed Peacock Tee to show you a couple more works in progress. First one being a huge scarf. I guess it's still in progress. So this is not even its kind of final measurement, but this is the Berlin scarf by Paulastrickt. And it's a stockinette in the round tube where you knit in the round, and you also knit this kind of fun, are they tassels? Would they be called tassels? Fringe. You also knit the fringes here. And I think it's much wider than your regular standard scarf, but that's kind of the purpose. This, I guess, it's more of a statement piece, like a statement scarf, which you could even like wear around your neck without wrapping it around yourself and more kind of draping it here with the fringes. And the yarn is CaMaRose Snefnug. This is a blown yarn. Just by feeling it, it kind of looks like the Drops Air. So like very soft, very lightweight. So I think it's very, very good for accessories, especially like neck accessories. It doesn't weigh you down. Like it's not heavy. It's very lightweight, and it's also very warm because I guess the blown yarn is made so that it traps air inside the actual strand of yarn. And so that makes it like warm, even though it's kind of like, it's a hollow tube with some fibers in it, but it's still very, very warm and also very lightweight. So here you can kind of see how chunky the needles that I'm using are. This is a project that goes by very, very quickly. And it is, I think, 6 bowls of the Snefnug. I've used 5. I'm on to the 6th one. So it'll be done fairly shortly, and I'll have to do the fringes on the other side. Blocking this giant scarf, or this very wide scarf, I guess, should produce a longer scarf. So I foresee, also based on what the pattern mentions, I foresee the scarf kind of shrinking a little bit in terms of the width and stretching a little bit in terms of the length. So I'm assuming it'll get a little bit even longer than what it is now. Blocking does magic, I guess. And the yarn actually comes from Dublin. I was in Dublin for a work trip 3 weeks ago or so, and on my kind of last day in Dublin, I stopped by. This is Knit. It is a lovely yarn store. It's inside a mall. So even if it rains and you are in Dublin, the city center, if you want a break from the rain, go in the mall, and on the 2nd floor, you'll find a yarn store. There's a cafe. You can drink a warm beverage. It's lovely. It was really, really cozy in there. So I did buy the 6 bowls of the Snefnug, and I chose this kind of rosy mauve color because I feel like it still felt somewhat of a staple neutral color, but not kind of your typical neutral color, I guess. It's a little bit, it has some color, but I guess it's desaturated. It's muted enough that I can see myself wearing it without kind of getting bored of, like, I don't know, a bright, fun color that might not be as wearable for me. So yeah. And this pattern comes in only one size, so kind of adult size, but since it's, again, just stockinette in the round with some fringes, I think it'll be very easy to adjust it to a child size. And so I think it's an option for me to do that with the Drops Air in that kind of a sweet orchid purple, light purple color. I could make a version for my daughter with my Drops Air. I would have to cast on less stitches, so this is less wide, and make less fringes. And from a giant scarf to more of a teeny tiny work in progress, this is the start, I guess, of a lovely ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. This is the beginning, as in it'll become, I guess, the brim of the hat. I mean, I'm still missing the rest of the hat, so this is probably a useless try on, but I've knit the lovely ribbed hat pattern before, and I found it so easy. And also I think ribbing is very smart for people like me who are not experienced hat knitters, because the ribbing makes it kind of stretchy enough that if you don't get exactly the measurement that would be ideal for your head, it would still fit you. So even if you make it like a little bit more snug than what you would like, ribbing allows you to stretch it. And if it's kind of loose-ish, like too big in the end, the fact that it's ribbing probably still makes it wearable. So if you are like me, not very experienced with hat knitting, I would say the ribbed hat, not necessarily this one from Pearl Soho, but any ribbed hat is a good choice as kind of first or second or third hat pattern. I've attempted other kind of stockinette in the round hats, and those I think have the downside of me having to really nail the circumference because they don't adjust as much to your head, because I guess it's less stretchy. Like stockinette fabric is less stretchy, so you really need to nail the circumference of the finished hat for it to fit you well. But ribbing is, I guess what I'm saying is a little bit more forgiving. So for my, I guess, new hat in progress, I went with the ribbing so that it can hopefully fit me even if, I don't know, gauge is not perfect or size is not perfect for me. We'll see. And the yarn I'm using is Nocciole by Le Wool. This is an Italian yarn and it's wool and angora. And I've used Nocciole for a sweater, and that's a Monday sweater by PetiteKnit. So soft, so very soft. So I wanted some more of the same yarn, and to be honest, I kind of picked the most boring color that they offer in Nocciole. They have lovely oranges, blues, that even that green that I knit the sweater in would have been, I think, more exciting, but I guess I went for like the neutral, and I think this would be very, very wearable. Gray hat, I think you cannot go wrong. So not complaining, just saying that I think this feels like a little bit of a boring choice on my part compared to other colors that they offer. I think actually what maybe happened is that they didn't have those fun colors in stock, like the orange. Maybe that's why. Anyway, I hope to get a hold of that pumpkin orange this fall. I think in Florence for Knit Italia or Knit Italy, the yarn event that I'm going to in a few weeks. I hope that I can finally snatch it for either another hat or a sweater, not sure, but yeah. And this is 2x2 ribbing, which is not the super mindless stockinette, which I can do like without looking typically while watching a movie or like be distracted. I think 2x2 ribbing is a little bit less mindless for me because sometimes I have to look and see, oh, do I need to do the 2 purl stitches now or the 2 knit stitches? Like sometimes I need to check my work, but this is fairly mindless. Like it's a step above stockinette in the round, but I can still like work on it while, I don't know, doing other things. I guess that's what I'm saying. So yeah, it should take 2 balls of yarn, maybe 1.5 actually. So I might have a little bit of leftover and maybe I can do a little headband for my daughter or something similar with the leftover, because this is so soft that I really want to use it all if I can. And this brings us to the end of the really active works in progress. I do have another couple of things that are technically works in progress, in the sense that I worked on them over the summer and they're not finished object, but they are knits that I kind of put in hibernation, or I guess on hold, until the next kind of summer season or warm season comes around. So I'll show them to you, but you will not be seeing them over the winter as finished objects. You'll see them when summer comes next year. One is the lovely mixed ribbed camisole by Florence, handmade by Florence. Unfortunately, I didn't finish it. I'm a very, very bad test knitter. I was part of the test knit group, and I did do like the majority of the body of the camisole. I did all the I-cord edges, which are lovely, but I didn't actually finish it, so I didn't do a very good job. This is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in Poppy Blue, which is lovely. I would love a sweater quantity of Poppy Blue in their Knitting for Olive Merino, maybe in combination with their mohair, or maybe just the merino held double to make like a very simple raglan sweater or similar. So I really like this color. And the other kind of hibernation station knit is this Cozy Classic Light sweater by Jessie Made Designs, and it is again Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. This time is in lemon curd. That's the name of the colorway. So yummy. And yeah, it's there. It's hibernating, because pure silk is not a fiber that I can work on during the fall or even winter time. It's quite dry. I think it's really, really perfect to work on it during very warm summer days, or just regular summer days, which are typically very warm. But it doesn't call my name when the weather starts to cool down like it happened recently. So I'll stay here. I'll finish it up in, I guess, maybe in the springtime, so that it's ready for like late spring or early summer. The only modification that I've done compared to the Cozy Classic Light pattern is my usual twisted rib, which I do for most plant-based fibers. I feel like it just looks better in terms of how neat it makes the neckline, or I guess the ribbing, looks like. Especially with my personal style of ribbing, which I guess doesn't result in a very neat ribbing for just, I guess, how I tension my yarn. And so the twisted rib makes it much tidier, in my opinion. And we're done. We're at the end of everything that I wanted to show you. Hopefully, if you didn't want to actually watch all of this content, you actually skipped ahead a little bit and like skipped the content that you were not interested in. But yeah, I'm excited to be back in my knitting groove and knitting podcast habit, I guess. I will see you in next episode. My plans are to kind of finish up most of the things that I mentioned as like active works in progress, but I'm also picking up, I think, my Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose, which I didn't touch for many, many months, but I would like to add a few squares. I think kind of the weather is cold enough for me to enjoy having a little blanket on my legs and knit away. Yeah, so I'll see you in next episode. Thank you for your time. Bye.